Today with 11th lecture we are going to see reports and indices of the month of June and July. We have selected these topics from June and July which are important for your prelims. Almost 13 to 14 topics. Let us see how many we can do in this lecture. Our first indices or index actually singular. Our first index is a State Food Safety Index 2020. This was released in June. Is this the first time this report has been released or index has been released? No, this is the second version of this index. Second time it is released, and it is released by Food Safety Organization FSSAI, which is present in Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Every detail about FSSAI I have explained you in the previous lecture only. It was released on the occasion of World Food Safety Day. In your country, FSSAI is also concerned with food safety. So this report or index was released on World Food Safety Day only. And theme, because of the COVID-19 situation, we have problem in supply chain. But there are many COVID warriors who are ensuring the uninterrupted availability of safe food during COVID-19 pandemic. So it was dedicated to those people, and the theme was food safety is everyone's business, right? Now this index, which state topped, which state was at the bottom, this is not very important, but I have included anyway. The main thing is that what are the parameters. This index ranks the states and union territories on 5 parameters. The 5 parameters are food safety. In food safety you will see human resources and institutional data which will work towards food safety enforcement. Second will be compliance. Third will be food testing and facility. Fourth will be training and capacity building. And then the last one will be consumer empowerment. Now all of these 5 parameters have different scores. If you talk about human resources and institutional data, that will be 20 marks. Compliance will have 30 marks, the maximum. Food testing, infrastructure and surveillance 20 marks. Testing and capacity building 10 marks. And consumer empowerment 20 marks. Overall 100 score is provided. Now this index is very special. This provides quantitative dynamic and qualitative dynamic benchmarking, and objective is to make your states and union territories capable for food safety, and they can competitive federalism for food safety. So that is why this ranking is done. So equal states for equal ranking. So we classified states in 3 categories. One is larger state, one is a smaller state, and third category is for the union territories. In the larger states, Gujarat was at top. Smaller states, Goa was at top, and in the union territories categories, Chandigarh topped this index. So we had 5 criteria, right? 5 parameters. First was human resource. This is directly from the FSSAI website, gov.in. So first criteria was human resource and institutional data. It had 20% weightage. So what do we see in this? We have to check availability of a strong culture of food safety and ecosystem for enforcement of commensurate, that is proportional to the size of the state and the population. You have to enforce food safety regulations and make a strong culture for food safety. That is your first criteria, human resource and institutional data. So what can be the human resources? Food safety officers, designated offices, facility for adjudication, appellate tribunals. All these are your institutional and human resources. This is the first criteria. Second is compliance. Very easy, 30% weightage. Most important parameter is compliance because 30% the maximum score. It measures overall coverage of food businesses in licensing and registration commensurate with the size and population. So you have to get the license for food safety, registration and everything. You are complying or not, that will be included in compliance criteria. Third will be food testing, infrastructure and surveillance, 20% weightage, whether you have such lab or not, so that you can test the food. Otherwise you have to send the sample to the other states. So it measures availability of adequate testing infrastructure, the labs, and that labs will have trained manpower. Then only your ranking will be good. Those will they will check the sample. D, the fourth criteria, training and capacity building. It will have 10% weightage. This parameters focuses on training and capacity building of regulatory staff, whether they are equipped with the recent knowledge or not, whether they are properly trained or not, laboratory personnel and regulatory staff. And the fifth criteria, consumer empowerment also has to be looked upon, 20% weightage. So this is about your awareness and everything. This parameter measures the performance of a state or union territories in various parameters, empowering initiatives of FSSAI, like whether people are participating in food fortification initiative. So you will also know some FSSAI initiatives here. Food fortification, That means adding extra nutrition on the food. Eat Right campaign, this is written as campus, but Eat Right campaign is there. Bhog is also an initiative of FSSAI. Here, blissful hygienic offering to God. That means during the worshipping, puja, prasad and everything, and the food you get from your temple and all, that should also be very hygienic. So Bhog is an initiative of FSSAI only, that deals with the food provided and food provided to the your places of offering, or you can say temples and Gurudwara, every place. Hygiene rating of restaurant. And RUCO is what? Repurpose used cooking oil. So cooking oil should not be used again and again, otherwise it generates many dangerous fats. So you have to discard it or collect it. There was a system developed by FSSAI where they will be collecting it and recycling it in some other manner. Repurpose used cooking oil initiative. Clean street food hubs. These are all initiatives of FSSAI. So these are the 5 criteria. There is one more initiative of FSSAI, that is Heart Attack Rewind. Heart Attack Rewind, they are focusing on by 2020 they have to eliminate trans fat from the entire food ecosystem of India. That is Heart Attack Rewind. Trans fat elimination by 2020 from the food chain. Now a very small topic or report. Global Education Monitoring Report 2020. This report is released by UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. The report is titled as Inclusion and Education, All Means All. That means we are focusing on inclusive education. Everybody should get, every child, every adult should be having the opportunity for education. That is inclusive education. The report is titled Inclusion and Education, All Means All. The report particularly focused on COVID-19 situation and said that if we talk about the April 2020 data, almost 91% of the students around the world were out of school. They were having TV education or computer education, online education, Zoom classes and everything. But in the schools, only 9% of students remained all over the world if we take the collaborated data. So COVID-19 has worsened the inequalities in education system worldwide, because every child is not having laptop, computer and tab. So the report focuses that once the children are 91% children are out of the school, so the poor children or the countries which have poor children, their education system has become even more unequal. Rich people, middle class people are having 2 computers in a house. Both of the children can afford it, but the poor people are not able to afford it, and you can see it around. Anyway, the international steps for inclusive development, inclusive education. If you talk about Sustainable Development Goal 4, that is about education, it has target like inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunity for all. So inclusive is the word here in the Sustainable Development Goal 4. Then you have United Nations Convention on Right of Persons with Disabilities. In that convention of 2006 United Nations, it is mentioned that the inclusive education should be given to the disabled people also. So the disabled people also should be given the education. That is why it will be also inclusive development. What are India's efforts towards inclusive education? First of all, we have the Right to Education Act 2009. In that Right to Education 2009, it is mentioned that for a primary school children, for a primary school child, the school should not be located more than 1 kilometer far. That is why inclusive education, right? You don't have to go far away so that you do not drop out of the school. Then you have Right of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. In that it is mentioned that schools and colleges should be Sugamya Bharat. That means even the disabled person should be provided opportunity, and architecture should be made in a way that even a disabled person can get the education. That is in Right of Persons with Disabilities Act 2006. Then the new National Education Policy also talks about universal education, inclusive education, education for everyone. So these are the various initiatives towards inclusive education for people, and this report is released by Global Education Monitoring Report is released by UNESCO. You have to remember this only. Other programs you have to just keep in mind, right? Next topic. This topic is National Institutional Ranking Framework, NIRF ranking. National Institutional Ranking Framework. This is an initiative of Ministry of Human Resources and Development, now Education Ministry. National Institutional Ranking Framework is not something new. It was first of all launched in 2005, and 2015 it was launched, and based on the 2015 data and research, First rankings came in 2016, and from then annually every year the ranking is being done. Now something very special, this is a voluntary exercise. So if a college wants to opt for it, they can send their submission. If a college doesn't want, they can excuse themselves from this ranking. Okay, so this is a voluntary exercise where only institutions that submit required data are ranked, otherwise they will not be ranked. NIRF 20 has ranked institutions across 10 categories. Out of these 10 categories, overall university, engineering, management, pharmacy, college, medical, law and architecture, these were present till the last year only. But now this year 10th category dental is also included. This is the new entry here. There are 5 parameters for this. One is teaching, learning and resources. Second is research, professional practice and collaborative performance. Third is graduation outcome. Fourth is outreach and inclusivity. And fifth is perception. And you do not need to remember the ranking, but I have included the infographic if you want to see. Overall ranking is different, then various colleges ranking is different. Top institutions, if you talk about 7 Indian Institutes of Technology IITs, Indian Institutes of Sciences, Bangalore, JNU and Banaras Hindu University were ranked as top 10 educational institutions of the 2020 overall category, okay, in the NIRF. You can see here. Okay, the 3 top ranked universities were IISc, JNU and BHU, and the 3 top ranked colleges were Miranda House, Lady Shri Ram College for Women and Hindu College, not the Hindu College, okay, Hindu College. All these are part of Delhi University. Now I will go to Wikispedia and I will tell you what are the sub parameters of these 5 criteria. So the first criteria is teaching, learning and resources. In teaching, learning and resources, we are saying some sub parameters like a student strength, including doctoral students. How many students are doing the PhD? Faculty student ratio is good or not? Permanent faculty is there or you have the contract faculty? These are teaching, learning, resources, right? Combined metric for faculty with PhD. PhD faculty is there or not? Experienced faculty is there or not? And what is the total budget and its utilization in this institution? This is teaching, learning and resources. Now second is research, professional practice and collaborative performance. Here you have combined metric for publication. How many publication research papers you have? Quality of publication, where are you publishing your publications? That is also very important. If you have any IPR and patent or not. If you have any footprint of projects and professional practice and executive development program or not. Third is graduation outcome. Very easy to understand the graduation outcome. Combined percentage placement, higher studies and entrepreneurship. Whether your college is giving graduation outcome as placement, higher studies or entrepreneurship or not. Metric for university examination. How are they? What is the median salary offered? That means most number of people are getting how much salary? That is also important. And students admitted into top universities from your college. Other PhD students graduated or not. Then outreach and inclusivity will have percent student from other states or countries, whether you have international students or not. Regional diversity, women, that means gender equality or not in your college, and other economically and socially challenged students are present or not, and physically challenged students are present or not. These are some of the criteria in this category. Then you have the last one, perception. What is the peer perception? That means other researchers, employers, what is their perception about your college? Investor perception about the college. Academic perception, that is also peer perception, and the public perception is there. Then competitiveness, all these criteria are included in the perception. So these are the 5 parameters and sub-parameters. Now World Competitiveness Index. This is not to be confused with Global Competitiveness Index. Global Competitiveness Index is very important report released by World Economic Forum, while World Competitiveness Index is released by Institute for Management Development. It is an independent Institute for Management Development, IMD. Almost 60 countries were ranked. In that, India has got 43rd rank. Last year also India had got 43rd rank. This year also India has got 43rd rank. This is an annual indexing. World Competitiveness Index comes every year by Institute for Management Development, and India is ranked at 43rd place. Last time also India was ranked at 43rd place. The problem with India is poor infrastructure, low investment in education and health system, and India has done some improvements. Still India is at the same place, but India has done some improvements, like long-term employment growth is happening, high-tech exports are happening, foreign currency reserves are increasing, political stability has come. So these are some of the places where India is doing good, and these are some of the places where India is doing bad, and the rank is 43rd, and Institute for Management Development publishes it. The report name is World Competitiveness Index. That is all about it. Singapore is at the first position. Now learn about Global Competitiveness Report. This is also an annual report, but this is published by World Economic Forum. They are publishing this report since 2004. Global Competitiveness Report. It ranks countries based on their Global Competitiveness Index. If you talk about 2020, in 2020 this report has not been released till now, Global Competitiveness Report. So the latest report we have is 2019. In 2019, India is ranked at 68th position, and 2018 India was ranked at 58th position. So you have to remember this trend. India's position has declined by 10 places in the 2019 Global Competitiveness Report. Also you have to remember that in World Competitiveness Index also Singapore was at the top, and Global Competitiveness Report of WEF, there also Singapore is at the top place in the 2019 report. Now this report, a State of World Population Report 2020, this report is released by United Nations Population Fund. What is United Nations Population Fund? It is United Nations Reproductive and Sexual Health Agency. So again, a State of World Population Report 2020 is released by United Nations Population Fund, which is a sex and health agency of United Nations. You can call it Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency actually. This has released the State of the World Population 2020. And now the report is titled as Against My Will, Defying the Practices That Harm Women and Girls and Undermine Equality. So the focus is on violence and discrimination and bias against the girls and women. Focus is on gender bias and violence against girls and women. So this report highlights many of the things which are not very important. But when you talk about 19 human rights violations against women, this report focuses on 3 most prevalent ones. First is female genital mutilation. Second is extreme bias against daughters in favor of sons and child marriage. Child marriage is the third one. All of these 3, in India, child marriage and extreme bias against daughter was very prevalent according to the report. There is one concept by Amartya Sen. The term missing women was caused by Amartya Sen, and this report focuses on missing women also. It says that missing women has more than doubled over the past 50 years. When you compare it with 1970, the cases of missing women has doubled actually. What are missing women? Missing women are women missing from the population at a given date. Today, if there was a case that there was no discrimination, there was no sex selection, then there would have been more women. So those are the missing women who could not live, right? Due to cumulative effect of postnatal and prenatal sex selection in the past. They could have been here, but they are not here because of postnatal and prenatal sex selection. Those are the missing women from our society, and the cases have doubled. This phrase is very important for your UPSC mains perspective also. You can coin this, you can write this term because it was coined by Amartya Sen. COVID has another impact. Pandemic has threatened to reverse the progress we have made in ending these practices. The COVID is reversing that because women are the most impacted. Industries are down. Everything is down. There is economic hardship. There is lack of access to health services for the women. About the cases of women missing in India, 46 million girls are missing cases because of sex selection. And report says that in India, child marriage is directly related to women, directly related to poverty, geographical location. And it says that 1 in 5 girls is married before at the age of 18. But this 1 in 5 is global data. India is even more worse in this situation. In India, overall 46 million girls are missing. Almost 1.5 million girls are missing every year because of the sex selection. The report says that. Next report is by UNHCR. UNHCR is United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. This publishes global trends report about migration, forced displacement, people unwilling to dislocate to other place or displaced to the other place, but they are forced to do so because of some environmental condition or human rights and everything, or poverty maybe. So report says that 100 million people were forced to flee their homes in last 10 years. last decade 100 million people were forcefully displaced because of some situation. Forced displacement has almost doubled since 2010. Okay, out of that, problem is that 40% are children who are displaced out of this 100 million people, and 5 countries account for 2/3 of the world's overall displacements across border, transnational border displacement. 5 countries are top 2/3, making Syria, Venezuela, Afghanistan, South Sudan and Myanmar. So India is not in the top 5 country. Problem is that 85% of the displaced people are living in the developing countries nearby the original country. So developing country also has some huge pressure about this, and developing country also does not have the good facilities for the forced displaced people. And 80% of the world's displaced people are in countries or territories that are affected by already acute water scarcity, food insecurity and malnutrition. So how can they survive in a country where there is already acute shortage of water, food and there is malnutrition? What about India? In India, the forced displaced people living in India, the data is 1,95,105 by the end of 2019. So let us have some brief introduction about UNHCR. UNHCR headquarters is in Geneva, Switzerland. It was established in 1950. United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. It is a United Nations agency, you should know that, and purpose is to aim and objective is to aid and protect, that means help and protect refugees, forcibly displaced people, communities, just like I taught you about this thing, and a stateless people who do not belong to any state, for example your Rohingya refugees, and to assist in their voluntary repatriation. You will not send them forcefully to the home country. If they are willing to go, then the voluntary repatriation can be assisted. Local integration, if they want to live in a place, they should be locally integrated to the new place, or resettlement to a third country. Everything is looked upon by UNHCR. Headquartered is in Geneva and Switzerland. Various staff and 135 countries are part of it. It was created in 1950 because after World War II you had huge refugee crisis. So to deal with that, this organization was created. Now everywhere the war is going on, so this organization is always in action. The main thing related to this is 1951 Refugee Convention, and that Refugee Convention establishes a scope and legal framework of the agency's work. So any country which signs this Refugee Convention, that country has to fulfill some conditions, and according to that, that country will take care of the refugees. Okay, now the question is, has India signed this? No, India has not signed the United Nations Refugee Convention of 1951. India says that we have our own policy. We look upon the refugees, whether it is Myanmar refugee, Bangladesh refugee, Sri Lankan refugee, whether we have refugees coming from Tibet area. So we have never denied anyone the human rights, and we are not bound upon by this. So India has not signed this. And there is a protocol also, 1961 protocol. India has not signed any. For recognition of its work, UNHCR has won 2 Nobel Peace Prizes, 1954 and 1981, right? And it is member of United Nations Development Group. United Nations Development Group is not UNDP. United Nations Development Group is an amalgamation of various organizations of the United Nations which can be working for sustainable development. A consortium of organizations working for sustainable development. So United Nations Development Group will have various organizations of United Nations and some other organization also. UNHCR is also part of that consortium. So you have to very carefully remember that India is not party to the 1951 Refugee Convention and not even party to its protocol 1967. India has its own rules and criteria. Now this Financial Management Index, FMI for rural development, this index is not in the picture already. This index is being developed by the Ministry of Rural Development. So Ministry of Rural Development is saying that very soon they will come with a new financial management index, because many of the states are having grants from the central government for rural development. So we need to look upon how much grant is being utilized in what way, efficiently or not, there is corruption or not. For that, financial management index will be created by Rural Development Ministry. They have already created it. Soon, probably next year, they will be coming with the index. So states will be ranked on a new financial management index for rural development, and they will be ranked on efficient management of financial resources allocated for implementing almost half a dozen rural development schemes, even MG Narega. Now, Ministry of Rural Development, Department of Rural Development has developed a financial management index, and it will map the performance of states and rank them on the basis of 5 parameters. These 5 parameters are preparation of annual plan, you are doing good or not in preparing an annual plan, expeditious release of due state share, timely utilization of the fund and submission of the utilization certificate, optimum implementation of public financial management system. What is public financial management system? It is a web based platform that helps in tracking and monitoring of flow of funds to the implementing agency. For example, central government is giving something to the states, right? Now it goes to the state, a state gives it to the districts. Now district collector, for example, is the implementation agency. So this PFMS, public finance management system, this system will see from here that how much fund we had given to the state, and now from a state how much went to the district collector, and has district collector utilized it in a right way, or there has some leakage at any stage. So everything is monitored by PMFS. This is a web based platform, and for some of the schemes even Prime Minister office directly gets involved. So this will be optimum implementation of public finance management system or not. This is also a criteria. Optimum implementation of direct benefit transfer module for the rural employment guarantee scheme. Internal audit and social audit are also the criteria. So these are the total 5 parameters. Some of them have multiple components, that is why it is looking like 10 parameters, but overall if you pause the screen and see, it is only 5 parameters. Now this topic data UPSC is never going to ask you, but you should just know that what is Lancet. Lancet is peer reviewed science journal, and that science journal has predicted population trends. So you should know that population trends study has come by Lancet, and Lancet is peer reviewed science journal. Lancet has predicted. Now the news came in Indian Express and the Hindu a lot, but the prelims questions picking up from here is very difficult. So just you should have information that Lancet is a peer reviewed science journal, and that has published by a study population trends of the world. It is saying that the world population will peak in 2064. After that it will start declining. Global total fertility rate is projected to peak at reach 1.66 in 2100, and in 2017 it was 2.37. So the total fertility rate of the global world will become 1.66 in 2100, that is end of the century, and it is 2.37 in 2017. Also by the end of the century 2100, the countries with the highest projected population will be India, Nigeria, then China, then US, then Pakistan. So India will be at the top, and India's population peak will not happen in 2064. India's population peak will happen in 2048 only, and we will be 1.61 billion population, and then there will be decline. By 2100 we will be only around 1 billion. What about the working age population in India? You will have a huge demographic dividend. Largest working age population will be present in India by 2100. Working age population 20 to 64 years, and demographic dividend peak will reach in 2041 only. That is very good thing. That is the share of working age, and population will hit approx 59%. That your demographic dividend as 2041 will be 59% of the population will be available for work. And national total fertility rate to be below replacement level by 2021. So in next 2 decades our population growth is going to decline. Not 21 is not 2 years, okay? This will happen in 2041. Peak in India's peak is coming in 2048. After that your population will decline, but replacement level and total fertility rate, country's total fertility rate will be below national replacement level by 2021, and after that in 2048 it will start declining. Share of population over age of 60 in India will rise, so the dependent population will rise. 20% will be the dependent population in 2050. In the last census it was 8.6%. What is total fertility rate? Total fertility rate is the TFR is the total number of children born or likely to be born to a woman in her lifetime if she were subject to the prevailing rate of age specific fertility in the population. So in that population, age specific fertility is a criteria, age specific fertility. If the woman is also having the same age specific fertility, then chances of having her so many children, number of children either born or likely to be born in her lifetime will be the total fertility rate, and the total fertility rate for replacement level should be 2.1, a little more than 2. Why? Because 2 people will be replacing 2, but there will be some mortality also. So 2.1 should be the for the replacement level total fertility rate. India is going to achieve it very quick, very soon. Now till now we are done with a state food safety index, global education monitoring report, national institutional ranking framework, world competitiveness index and global competitiveness index also, WEF, a state of world population report 2020 also we are done, United Nations High Commission for Refugees global trends report, financial management index for rural development, index to be created soon, and Lancet, a study of population trends we have also seen. Now a state of food security and nutrition, tiger status, sustainable ocean economy for 2050, India's second voluntary national review, and cooling emission and policy synthesis report. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 topics I will be covering in the next lecture, because otherwise it will become very insipid. So in next lecture I will be covering these 5 topics and some other topics also, maybe government schemes. Thank you so much.